Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's a little wet outside, but here's the funny thing. When we take a look at the metrics, when we take a look at purchase demand versus pended versus, what's coming on market, funny enough, year over year for the same week, we're 10% higher in actual sales. In other words, actual pended homes. Demand has increased. You might be saying, well, how is that possible? We're going to get into that. We're going to get into our metrics. Again, there's no selling. Hey, hit that subscribe button. At least hit the like button. There's no marketing, so everybody gets to enjoy this. Let's talk about what's going on in our market, and let's have a little bit of fun with it. Okay, so when we talk about what's going on in the market and why would we see this surge versus what we have seen in the, say, January, February type market. And simple enough, rates had that biggest impact. We dropped down into the high fives, which was which was very much like what we got about 4 years ago. And so will we continue to see us bopping in and out? Absolutely. If you have any questions about that, go to 2024 October and walk that one through, and you'll see we've been saying the same thing, that in 2026, this is where we were going to see this. This is why we're also going to see, I think, some increased activity. We're going to see a year-over-year appreciation between 4 and 6%, as high as 8%. So actually, I think 6 to 8%, I think, is what my prediction is. And as we move that ball forward, unlike some of the other areas nationwide, listen, we're not land speed records. We're going to be just a gentle 1, 2, 3% incline on the treadmill here as we continue to move forward. Okay, all things considered, there's a lot of things that are shaking out, but we also saw a little bit of an uptick in the rates because of what's going on a global level. So as we open this back up, it talks about the highest refi demand in 4 years after last week's rally, which we did amazingly well. But look at our purchase index here. This is from the Mortgage Bankers Association, and you can see it just absolutely just pile drived up there. It dipped back down again when we started to see some of the rates come in, and again, as you saw, that goes up and down. Seasonally adjusted purchase index increased 6.1%. from 1 week earlier and was 10% higher than the same week a year ago. Lower rates and gradual improvement in the housing inventory continue to support buyer activity as the spring market approaches. Well, it didn't just approach, it has arrived. And we're seeing some really great activity. In fact, you're going to see here from our running 7-day average, you're going to see some really funny numbers because we are still seeing a great number of homes that are going pended. But when we take a look at what happened over the, let's just take yesterday as far as homes coming on market, we evaluated probably 150 homes as we handpicked them to the clients. And it was a crazy, crazy Friday. It seemed like every time I went through the list, boom, we had another list that came through. Our spring market is definitely starting to take off. We're starting to see a lot more buyer activity and definitely seller activity. With that, to the chagrin for builders, they're starting to pull back a little bit. And that's, I wouldn't say pulling back, but they're starting to take second seat again because there's so many resale homes coming on in more desirable areas, which is really the biggest thing. So if we come back and we take a look at just what our headlines are, look, highest refi demand in since the last 4 years. That's super awesome. Bottom left, mortgage rates bounce back near highs, and a lot of that is because of what's happening over in Iran. Hands down, there's been just a lot of turmoil in the market. Remember, mortgage rates are publicly traded. They are not controlled by the feds. A lot of people think they are. They are not. They're a publicly traded stock. Actually, it's a bond. And what it does, and it fluctuates with the market. So remember that, because as we take a look at the upper right, if we blow this back up again, look, Mortgage fixed rates, they actually went up. We were at 5.98. We're now up to 6.14. So we took a bit of a jump. And then, of course, mortgage rates jumped back into the sixes. That happened on Wednesday, Thursday. And that was a little bit bigger of a deal, only because, again, what's been going on. When we take a look at the running 7-day average for Freddie Mac, which is a very good metric to watch, we're still, 0.68, 0.63% lower in rate. So a little bit more than 0.5% rate better than we were at last year. Sure, we're not the 1% that we were crusping on when we hit the 5.98. And as you see my little arrow on the right, we headed up in an upward trend. But when we take a look at what's going on market-wise, we take a look at homes coming on, homes going off. And what that does is when we take a look at what is pended, that is a dynamic number, just like homes that are coming on market, which tells us what is our absorption rate happening as far as the pended home sale metric that we look at each and every week. So when we monitor that, that means it's a dynamic, hey, this is what's happening today. Solds, however, that's the rearview mirror. We've already seen what's been going on in February. We saw that our pendants were up. And in fact, when if we blow this back up again, let's go to the next one. Look, we had 1,208 that came on market, 1,095 that went off market. Why is that important? Because as we take a look at this, we say, okay, what's our list to sales price? Our list to sales price actually improved by 1%. We went from 96 to 97. Now we're at 98. That's the center green chart. The year to date is 97% list to sales price. And you might say, okay, George, what the heck does that mean? Simple enough. If I have a $100,000 house and I sell it for $100,000, that's 100% list to sales price. Right now we're at 98%. So if I list it $100,000, I'm selling at $98,000. That is better than the 96, 95 that we were just at, and we've improved. That also goes with the average sales price. We'll get into that momentarily. But what's important is when we take a look at what is coming on market, that is a huge upswing, which tells us our spring market is here. But the fact that our pendants are still killing it each and every week, because really on Wednesday we were at 752, I think, that new on market as the average starts rolling through. Again, Friday was a massive number of homes that came on market. And like I say, we had about 150-ish homes that we handpicked, for our clients and whatnot. That tells us that the spring market is definitely kicking into gear. Buyers are going to have a lot more options. And we see that shortly here in our metrics, because as we roll through and we take a look at the Northwest MLS numbers, okay, let's take a look at that. So if we see that in fact, let me blow this up one more time. Let's go with the bottom green chart. So that's March year over year. We are up on our solds 23.9%. Let's call that 24%. That's a big deal. Last week, we were a negative 3.4% because we are starting to see the February closings come into March, because those are the sales the pendant sales that happened, first part of February. We know that February we were killing it, and a lot of it because the interest rates had come down, had the biggest impact on everything. Right here, we get me out of the way. There we go. We can even see that even today we're up 16.7% on pendant. So if we look at the top chart, inventory last week was up 28.4%. This week, because of the number of pendant homes that we're seeing each and every day, we've actually reduced that down to 16.2%. So we actually lost 12% of that as we did a drawdown on the inventory that was available. We take a look at solds. Last week, we were at 5.4% less sales. Well, now we're only at down 2.2 year over year. And as you can see, we're definitely closing that gap by about 180 homes. When we take a look at our pendant year over year. Look, we're up 7%. And a lot of that is, again, well, most of that is based on rate. Rate has, without a doubt, the biggest impact on what buyers are doing. And you saw that in the beginning where you saw that absolute just skyrocket of homes that went pending. And a lot of that because we hit the high, we hit the fives. Now, refinances, those again, I think for the same week, week over week, for the same, year over year for the same week, I should say, was like 109% increase in refinances. That's a massive number. Why? Because people wanted to capitalize on the 5.98. That is why you come to the show, because then you, everybody watched the show, knew that was happening. All right. So let's talk a little bit about, let's pull this one up. What the heck is really going on? Average sales prices actually went up 48,000 each week. Now, okay, so let's be clear about something. When we talk about the average sales price, that just means what buyers and sellers agreed to and the average pricing. That doesn't mean that your home went up $48,000 since last week. That just means that is the average of what we are seeing right now. And it is a good metric for us to follow, along with days on market, along with percentage of list to sales price, things like that. The number of homes coming on market, the number of homes went pending. It allows you consistently to track these metrics. All right. So when we take a look at this, look, sales are down ever so slightly. Last week it was 5.4. Now it's 2.2%. Pending homes are up 7%. It was up 11% last week, but it's still up 7% this week. Average time on market is up 13 days year over year, but it's actually down 2 days from where we were at last week. Average sales price is higher by 2.9%. And then, of course, mortgage rates hit the lowest that we have seen in a lot of years. So how does that affect new construction? New construction is absolutely, without a doubt, has its biggest impact on interest rates, but also based on the fact of how many homes, how many resale homes come on the market that they are going to compete with, all right? Because new construction is awesome. Everybody loves a new home, okay? The difference is we all know that home lot sizes keep getting smaller as they try and cram more homes into each plat. It is a mandate, and that is to stop urban sprawl. I get it. But people want a little bit more space. They would like homes that are spread out a little bit more. They don't want to reach out the window and grab the salt shaker from their neighbor's house. And so that is probably the biggest competition for new construction, because price-wise, how they can beat that, they buy rate down, they offer incentives. And if you're looking for area, lot size and whatnot, you're not going to be looking as much at new construction. You're going to look at resale, what is coming on as you're considering your next move. All right. So when we move out here, and let's move this chart up. Look, let's go to the bottom chart. Again, they are reduced as far as the number of homes coming on. And you might say, well, wait. Why would they do that? Hey, look, if you know that you've got more new resales coming on, you are going to stagger those homes coming on market a little bit slower, because you don't want to flood the market and have them sit. So you're going to slow that construction pace down. And a lot of the vendors that we are seeing, a lot of the builders are starting to slow down that pace and putting them on at a more graduated pace. That's just smart, right? I mean, that's just super smart. Anyway, let's get back to it. When we take a look at it, our actual number of pending improved quite a bit since they were negative numbers last week, and number of homes coming on market, negative numbers. We go to the top chart. Again, we're seeing less homes coming on, but we're seeing a improvement on the year over year as far as number of homes that have sold and or going pending as those numbers continue to improve. What is the biggest thing? Look, when we take a look at the numbers, when we take a look at year to date, we take a look at the fact that when we say, hey, the sales price difference as far as list to sale price, look, it's absolutely dead nut on where it was last year. Year to date, it's down just a little bit, technically only 1% from where we were at last week. Why is that important? That is important because, again, we monitor what they're doing price-wise, inventory coming on, which says, hey, new construction is going to become a little bit more competitive. There's not going to be quite as many incentives because they're reducing the number of homes that are coming into a plat as far as being available. And so make sure that you're working with an agent that understands how to negotiate with new construction builders. Working with the site agent, you might think that you're going to save a commission or save money. You're not. Their job is to make the builder money. And what they've done by attracting you and not bringing in an agent, that's exactly what they've done. They get a bonus for that, and they will perpetuate that, but you will also not get some of the other benefits that you think you might get. They're not going to offer them to you because you're not going to ask, because you don't know what or how to ask. I'm not saying that it's a negative. I'm just saying, be advised, if you are not familiar with negotiating with builders and site agents, you're leaving money on the table. That's all I'm saying. All right, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about, here we go, bank-owned homes. Now, I guarantee that we're going to get some politician that's going to say, oh my gosh, it's Armageddon. We have a 50% increase in, foreclosure homes out there. Okay, that's 37 homes. That's pretty much peanuts. They're going to say, oh my gosh, listings are up 36%. That's 4 homes. Okay, they're going to say, oh my gosh, nothing is selling. We have a shortfall. I mean, people aren't buying foreclosures anymore. That's 2 homes. All right. So let's just be real. When we talk about the foreclosures and whatnot, there's just not that many. That is not. We're just one of the best markets nationwide. We're still in the top 5. And when we talk about foreclosures, look, banks are super smart. They know that they can, especially in good markets, they do not have to discount like they do in other states. In our state, they're going to do paint, carpet, and vinyl. And they're going to get that home on the market, and they are going to get a very good price for it where they do not have to discount. So just understand that. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and buying a bank-owned home is fine, and it is a good option, especially if you're buying one from a credit union because they do a little bit more. The thing of it is, you're going to pay market value. So just make sure you're qualifying the home on its merits. Don't think you're going to go and get a massive discount, because that's not going to happen. Just saying, just keep that in mind. So if you have any questions, hey, look, put it down below. Let us know what you need to know, want to know. We normally answer in about 30 minutes, except for on Sunday. And in the meantime, stay dry out there. I'll see you on the next video. Have a great day. Take care.